Live from the NHTV studios in North Haven, Connecticut, this is the Open Mic TV show. I'm your host, Michael CUOMO, and welcome along on this Wednesday night, July the 17th, 2013. As promised, ladies and gentlemen, my special guest will be joining me momentarily to my left, Charlie from Uncle B's Bait and Tackle. So get ready for your calls, questions, comments, and the phone number to call in is on the top of the screen. As always, 203-234-0025, and I'll be here till 9 o'clock with Charlie taking your calls, questions, whatever's on your mind. We're going to be primarily focusing on fishing tonight, fishing topics, fishing stories, new rules, regulations, some places to go fishing around in the area. If you want to call in with any questions you might have for Charlie, it could be any fishing question, ice fishing, fly fishing, the sky's the limit, so give us a call. I want to quickly mention last Wednesday night, my special guest Mike Bouchard was on, and I want to thank him for coming on. We had a great following on YouTube with a number of views watching the replay, and as you can see on the bottom of the screen, the website addresses are youtube.com/openmic80, along with facebook.com/openmictv. Those are the two avenues I encourage you to check out. Go on Facebook. Please become a fan of the Open Mic Show. Click like so you'll be a fan. And tonight's, this episode of Open Mic, which you're watching live, will be seen tomorrow on YouTube. It will be available to be seen live worldwide. So if you know anyone that's a fisherman, whether they live in Montana, New Mexico, Canada, or the Ukraine, they can go on YouTube tomorrow, check out tonight's replay of the Open Mic Show amongst all the other episodes that I've done. So I encourage you to check that out. Now, real quickly, before we take a break and bring out my special guest, Charlie, speaking of guests, in 2 weeks from tonight, which is going to be July 31st, I encourage you to mark your calendars down, as I just got confirmation a couple days ago, and I mentioned it on my Facebook page, that a special guest has been booked. He is a friend of mine. His name is Steve Smolka. He is an addictions counselor, and he works out of Waterbury at his practice. And Steve will be coming on the Open Mic Show July 31st, 8 o'clock, to talk about the recent, I guess, epidemic, if you will, when it comes to addiction, especially in the Wallingford area. We're hearing a lot about teenagers and kids getting hooked on prescription pain medicine and other sorts of medications, and whether it's heroin and pills and alcohol. I mean, the list goes on and on. So Steve's going to be on in 2 weeks to talk about this epidemic, give us his insight to the problem and any solutions that he might have or advice. It'll be a very touching, emotional show. I know there's been a lot of families affected by this, especially in Wallingford, which is right down the street from the studios, in which a lot of parents had to unfortunately bury their children who died as a result of overdoses. So Steve will be on again. Steve Smolka, July 31st, addictions counselor, to be talking about this problem. So I encourage you to mark that on your calendar. And again, I am having other guests lined up and getting ready to be booked for the Open Mic Show, and I will certainly keep you up to date as the weeks progress. I already have 1 or 2 guests lined up for August, September, but I'm going to make the announcements in due time. So it's certainly coming along, and I appreciate everyone that takes their time out to come on the show and take time away from their busy schedule. So that's about it. That's all the announcements I have. Again, facebook.com, youtube.com. 2 weeks from tonight, my special guest will be Steve Smolka. I want to thank Mike Bouchard last week for coming on. And now what I want to do, we're going to take a quick PSA break like we did last week. And as we do that, my special guest Charlie from Uncle B's Bait and Tackle will be joining me to my left momentarily. So as you come back, or as we come back on the Open Mic Show, I will have Charlie from Uncle B's joining me. So get ready for your calls. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
We depend on our national forests for clean air, wood for our homes, and drinking water for millions of Americans. But now, our national forests are depending on us. Trees have been devastated by insects, disease, and fires. The Arbor Day Foundation asks for your help in replanting our national forests, because so much depends on what we do today. Visit arborday.org. See what we're doing. See how you can help.
When you're finished with your food or beverage cartons, toss it in the recycling bin. Because every carton is recyclable and can be turned into useful paper products. When the contents are gone, let the carton live on. Recycle your cartons.
Stop. Whether it's on the way to school, at school, or online, bullying has become a non-stop threat to our youth today. Is your child being bullied? The National Runaway Switchboard can help. If you're having a hard time, get online or call to chat now.
Grandpa, look what I got. Let me see.
Oh, Dad, wait till you see the bike we got for Jake.
Hearing loss happens gradually with age, making it easy to ignore. Yet most older Americans aren't getting their hearing tested. Untreated hearing loss can keep your loved ones from enjoying what they cherish most.
Dad, can you hear me?
Don't let that happen. Speak up about hearing loss. You'll be glad you did.
And we're back on the Open Mic TV show. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Michael CUOMO. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, to my left, I'd like to introduce to you my special guest tonight. There's his credentials, Charlie from Uncle B's Bait and Tackle. Charlie, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. Taking time out of your busy schedule. This is the fishing season. Fishing season. So I appreciate you coming on, Charlie. And again, a quick reminder, anyone out there want to call in with your fishing questions for Charlie from the infamous Uncle B's Bait and Tackle out of Wallingford, Connecticut. There's the number, 203-234-0025. So Charlie, before we get into some questions and comments, I want to present to you, as I do with all my special guests, a official open mic with Michael CUOMO coffee mug. That
Appreciate
is for yours.
It.
Yep,
Thank
absolutely.
You.
You're welcome.
Fantastic.
So hopefully you enjoy that, and you might be able to fill that up with your favorite beverage on a cold winter morning as you go out ice fishing.
Yep.
So, all right, Charlie, let's talk a little bit about your establishment. First and foremost, for anyone out there that's not familiar, you run a bait and tackle store in Wallingford. But when did Uncle B's officially open? When was your start date?
We worked on it for about 6 months and then actually opened May 1st in 2002.
2002,
so we've
okay.
Been open for about 11 and a half years.
Wow, pretty good run. Now, in case people aren't familiar or aware, your current location on, I guess that's considered Route 5, is different from your initial location, which was farther up Route 5, closer towards Meriden, if you will, right?
Yes. We were in the, by the movie theater and Friendly's and Big Job Lot.
Okay.
Originally.
Yeah.
And at that point, the economy was a little bit tougher, so we downsized a little bit, found a new place to move to, and a lot of our customers were really happy that we did move. So it was a good situation, and we retained probably 95% of our customers.
That's great.
So they all knew where we were. Took a lot of work to get them to find out where we are, but we didn't go that far away. It was 3.5 miles on the same road.
Yeah.
South. So
same town, just
same everything.
Different
yeah.
part of town. And now, what made you want to open up Uncle B's? How did you guys start Uncle B's?
Well, I had a job of my own, and my son wasn't working, and he did a lot of fishing, and he turned around and asked me about 2 years prior to opening to open up a bait shop, and I told him, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. And he hounded me for 2 years, and so we finally decided to open one after I found a place that we could open.
And the name Uncle B's. I mean, your name is Charlie, obviously.
Yeah.
How do we come to the name Uncle B's?
Well, that's my son's name is Brandon. He works at the store with me, and his nieces couldn't say Brandon, so they called him Uncle B all the time.
Oh, okay.
So at that point, we thought about it and said, well, you know, Uncle B's Bait and Tackle sounds like a good name. So that's how we got the name.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, I assume you like to fish, but I'm going to ask you, do you like to fish? Are you a fisherman?
Yes, I got hooked quite a few years ago when I went out saltwater fishing and caught some 48-inch stripers. And it was my first time out here in the Sound. And when we got out there and we had such big fish on small rods, it was exciting. So yes, I got hooked on it. I like to trout fish and bass fish. And I do a little bit of ice fishing, so don't like the cold too much, but
Yeah.
ice fishing is fun. I take my grandsons.
For, you know, I don't know if my viewers are aware or not, but I am a huge fisherman. And you know I am. I'm always in and out of your shop. And although it is a little difficult to get the limousine in there.
Yeah.
Parking's a little tight, but my driver always hates going there.
Yeah.
Just for that reason. He loves all the bait and tackle. But no, seriously, I've been fishing since I was a kid. And ironically, I'm 100% Italian. I love to fish, but I don't eat fish.
I don't either.
You don't either?
Nope, I don't. I own a bait shop, and everybody laughs when they say that. They cook up the fish, and they love it and everything, and they say, which ones do you like? And I look at them and say, I don't eat fish.
Yeah, I mean, it's ironic, you know, being Italian, you know, loving to fish. I mean, I don't eat fish, and I haven't touched a piece of seafood in over 25 years.
I like shrimp.
Well, that's ironically
yeah.
the last piece of fish I had.
Yeah.
Was a shrimp, and you know, I did break out in some sort of weird hive as a kid, eating like fish sticks. You know, it was like the Gorton's fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I don't know if that's really fish or not. But all right, so let me ask you: throughout your, I guess, 11 years now, running
Yes.
Uncle B's, you must have seen a lot of fish come in and out of there.
Yeah.
You know, people catching fish. Taking photos, bringing them in. Do you actually, at your place, do you weigh fish, measure fish?
Not officially. We're not an official weigh station. We
Okay.
do have people that bring all their fish in and they show them to us. We take pictures. We actually take their pictures and put them up on the board that we have. We have a couple of peg boards, and we probably have 100, 150 pictures of all the people that have caught pretty good sized fish.
Right.
A lot of people go to Wharton Brook, which is down the street from us, and we've gotten some 15-pound trout out of there, and a lot of people come in and we measured them and weighed them, and they bring them in. They love to have their pictures taken, and then we see the pictures up on the wall, you know, so they get a lot of enjoyment out of that.
Now, speaking of official weigh-in stations, you just reminded me now, we're in July, obviously. The Bluefish tournament.
August.
That's August. Now,
That's
is
in
it
August.
the last weekend of August? Or?
It's about the middle of August or the
Okay.
third week of August, and a lot of people go out. My son goes
Yep.
with a friend of his. They sign up and they actually go out for the tournament. They stay out there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
And we keep track of what's going on as far as the biggest fish, and hoping that he gets the biggest one. But you know,
Yeah.
everybody goes out and has a good time for 3 days.
And in case people aren't aware of it, I think it's the WICC annual Bluefish tournament, the greatest bluefish tournament on earth, as they advertise it. Top prize for the #1 heaviest bluefish is $25,000,
25,000. Yeah.
which is not a bad payout for
A couple of days fishing.
sure. And most recently, I think last year's winner and the year before, what were they, around 18 pounds, the winner?
From what I understand, yeah.
Yeah.
I think last year was 16 and change,
Okay.
and
Year
a couple of
before
3 years ago, a young girl caught one offshore and won.
Wow.
Yeah, she landed a big one.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and obviously we are a little, you have a couple years on me, okay, so you'll know more about this than I will. But during the 70s and 80s, maybe even into the early 90s, were the size of the bluefish much larger than they are now? For example, in this tournament in 1985, compared to the fish, would somebody have easily caught a 30-pound blue in 85 as opposed to now a 16-pounder?
I don't think so. I don't think the fish really get huge as far as blues are concerned.
Okay.
Because they do get, caught a lot commercially. So I don't think I don't think the nature of the fish is really that big. I mean, stripers are big, but blues, I think they tend to run. I mean, I'm sure you get fish that are bigger than 15, 20 pounds.
Right.
But for the majority of them, they run from 10 to 20 pounds.
10 to 20, which, they put up a good fight still.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Charlie, we actually have our first caller of the night, so let's get to our caller. Good evening, caller. You're live on the Open Mic Show with special guest Charlie.
Good evening, Michael. Good evening, Charlie. How are you?
Good.
Good. How are you, Ed?
Good, good. Charlie, I just wanted to mention, I also have an open mic coffee mug, which I find is very convenient for placing worms. And when I want to, I'll put worms and night crawlers in there.
Yeah,
and
that's the last open mic mug you're going to get.
But I wanted to ask Charlie, I am a novice when it comes to fishing, but how much does a license cost, and how much is a fishing license good for? Is it something you have to do every year?
Yes, fishing licenses run freshwater $28, and then if you want all water, which includes the salt water, it's $32, so it's $4 more. And it runs from January 1st to December 31st each year, and each year you have to renew it.
Okay, and where would I get it? Would I have to go to town hall, or?
You can go to town hall, you can go to my store. A lot of bait shops will have them, and about half the town halls throughout the state have licenses. And some of the bait shops have them. Sports Authority, Dick's. It depends on where they're located and what their budgets were for getting the equipment to do it.
Okay. I used to fish years ago, and as a matter of fact, there's not even water there now in the Community Lake in Wallingford before the dam broke in 1979.
Huh.
I'm sure you're familiar. I'm sure, Charlie. I'm sure, and Mike, you might be too. Be familiar with Community Lake?
Yeah, I am, but I wasn't born in '79 yet.
Oh. Well, they still had water there in '79, and we used to fish for carp down there, and we would use bread.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Remember, I would take a loaf of bread from my mother's bread box there, and we go down and try and fish, and once in a while we would nail a carp, but we'd throw it right back in.
Well, Community Lake has water in it now, and it actually runs through the Quinnipiac River, so you can actually fish there.
I'll have to steal a loaf of bread from Maureen's bread box then.
Now, Ed, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard back in the day when Wallingford had those adult strip clubs, I forgot the name of it, you were actually a patron there, and you were using dollar bills to try to fish for strippers. I mean, stripers, sorry.
No, I know what you're saying, and the rumors are true, and darn that Daisy for letting that rumor out of the bag here.
Well, don't worry, Ed. It's safe between you and I and all the other people watching.
All right, and unfortunately, my license for that expired a long time ago too.
Yeah, those licenses are expensive.
All right, gentlemen, enjoying the show.
All right, Ed. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you later. You're welcome. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, now, Ed was talking about Community Lake, and that's by the linear trail in Wallingford. So there is a pond or lake there, and as you said, that feeds into the Quinnipiac River.
Right, where they put the new dam, so they have the steps there by the Merritt Parkway, so that the fish can get up and move up north.
Correct. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There's the fish ladder, which was a pretty big event in Wallingford. We had a lot of politicians and people from the DEP there, and So yeah, now that fish ladder, from what I understood and in research, there's a underwater camera that actually takes photos of these migrating fish.
Yes.
So now every time a fish goes by, it'll not only register how many fish have gone by, but it'll keep track of the species of fish for spawning purposes and you know, migrating charts and whatnot. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So now, as Ed was talking about saltwater licenses and you were giving him the answer, it's $28 for a freshwater license, $4 more for the saltwater portion of it.
Yes, as a combo.
As a combo. Now, if I just want to get a saltwater license,
then it's $10.
$10.
Yeah, by itself.
Now, the $1,000,000 question that I'm sure, and I've talked to a lot of fellow fishermen when I'm out there. Now, half of them are inebriated by 8 o'clock with their Budweisers, but still, they make a legitimate point. Why are we paying for saltwater fishing licenses when nothing is officially stocked in Long Island Sound?
Well, I think the official comment from everybody was that it was supposed to be used to help fix the boat ramps and the docks and the areas where people do fish, surf fishing off the jetties and such, keep clean bathrooms down there and make it a little bit more accessible for getting your boats in and out, and you know,
So
just to improve the areas is what it was generally set up for. What they're using it for, I don't know.
So it wasn't necessarily used to fund any sort of fish, because you can't really stock a fish in the Sound.
No, it wasn't used. It wasn't supposed to be for that. It was, New York had a license. You had to get a license in New York and Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and other states, and Connecticut went along with it, and then New York dropped theirs, but Connecticut kept theirs, so you can use your Connecticut saltwater for New York and Rhode Island. So it's not a real problem. So you can fish all over, really.
Okay, now real quick, if you're tuning in late tonight, my special guest is Charlie from Uncle B's Bait and Tackle, and there is the website, theunclebees.com. If you want any more information about Charlie's Bait and Tackle shop located in Wallingford. If you have any questions, any fishing questions out there, and I know there's a lot of fishermen in this area, give us a call, 203-234-0025. We'll be here live till 9 o'clock, and Charlie's ready to fire away at any questions you have, and he'll try to answer them as truthfully and honestly as he can.
Yep.
Now, I want to ask you, just talking about your bait and tackle store, what do you basically have at your bait and tackle store? I mean, you carry live bait.
Yes.
This time of year, most people would probably use, night crawlers, shiners?
We have live shiners all year long, and then we have night crawlers and mealworms, trout worms, dillies. All of those are basically kept all year round for trout fishing, bass fishing, and then we keep all the frozen baits for saltwater. We have bunker, mackerel, sandworms, squid, clams, eels, live eels. So we keep all of that for saltwater. So all the bait that you can actually use for saltwater and all the bait you can use for freshwater, we keep all year round.
And I know you actually do fishing. For example, you'll change people's lines on their poles.
Oh yes, we're a full-service store. We do reel repair, rod repair. We spool up all the fishing reels that people bring in. We do maintenance during the winter. We tell our customers to, after they get done beating up their reels all summer long, to bring them in the winter time and get them serviced and oiled, and get the line changed, because the line does deteriorate when you use it all the time. The sun does hurt it too, so it's good to change the line once a year.
So once a year to do your line, yeah, because it'll become frayed, and you know, if you don't change your line, from personal experience, the next spring when you're out there fishing and you make your first cast, odds are you're going to get a lot of backlash and knots and when you get the big fish on there, it's going to break. Yeah, exactly.
And then you're going to be mad. So, you know,
Now, what's the biggest fish you've either caught or seen caught or brought into your store?
I caught a 48-inch striper, a couple of them when I went out the first time I went, and 15-pound trout from Wharton Brook, a couple of 13 pounds, 11 pound, a lot of 8, 6 pound that they stock.
15-pound trout.
15-pound
from
trout.
Wharton Brook.
Yeah.
So that must have been a
Yeah.
what do they call those?
Huge.
Native.
Yeah, that's a native.
Native trout.
And they stock a lot of that, so there's always a lot of fish. They stock 4, 5, 6, 7 times during April and May, so that people can continue to fish. But they stock all over the state. They put in quite a few fish, and then they'll do a fall stocking in September. They'll do another trout stocking, so people can go out again during the fall for it's cooler weather, so the trout are more accessible, so they do restock. And then there's, whatever's left stays for the ice fishing in the winter.
So initially, like opening day, 3rd Saturday of April?
Yes.
So prior to opening day, if somebody wants to go fishing in January, February, March.
If we have ice, there's ice fishing.
Okay.
And if there's no ice, like 2 years ago, you can also do catch and release in certain areas. The state puts out a book that's your fishing guide.
Right.
And that designates all the catch and release areas that you can fish all year long, or some of them up until the end of March, some of them till the end of February. It just depends on the areas.
Okay.
And a lot of people will fish all year round.
And as for the trout that get stocked, I assume they come from a hatchery?
Yes.
Or a trout farm? Or right in Connecticut they have them?
Yes.
And they just transport them out. I've never seen it actually done, but I've heard when they stock trout, they kind of shoot them out of like a hose of some sort? Or
No, they net them.
Oh, they net them, okay.
Yeah, they take them out. The trucks come full of trout.
Yeah.
And they don't stock bass, so they just bring trout, and they take them out, and the Quinnipiac organization sells some of the fish as donations, and they tag them, and if somebody catches your tagged fish, there's places that buy the fish and give free oil changes or dinners. We give a rod combo and a tackle box if they catch our fish that's tagged. But they all come from the hatcheries, and they all put them out, and they make a big project out of it. They let everybody know when they're going to go ahead and stock. They stock up in Meriden and Redbridge. They stock at Wallingford and Oak Bridge. They stock Wharton Brook. And a lot of the fish come down to Mill River and Muddy River where they stock. So people go there, a lot of people go there, and they take pictures, and they let the kids dump them in the water,
Right.
usually in a cooler and stuff like that. So it's a fun day.
Yeah. And again, if anybody out there has any fishing questions for Charlie, you can give us a call, 203-234-0025. In case you are tuning in late, tonight's replay of the show you're watching will be on YouTube, youtube.com/openmic80. We'll be here till 9 o'clock, so give us a call. The number's on the screen. You know, you might be wondering about some places to go fishing, which I'm going to talk to Charlie about now. You might be wondering about getting your child involved with fishing, which is another topic we'll be talking about momentarily. Ice fishing, you know, as we, believe it or not, it will get cold around here again in about 6 months or so. If you've ever thought about ice fishing and you want to know a little bit about it, or fly fishing, there's you know, tons of questions you can call in and ask Charlie about. And again, we'll be here for another half hour or so. The show's flying by. As I always tell my special guests, it just goes by too quick. So let's start in order. Charlie, what are where are some good places for a beginner, let's say, you know, child, intermediate angler to fish around the, you know, we're in North Haven here, but the show's obviously seen all over the place. You know, let's start with some of that. Wharton Brook would be the best.
Yeah, Wharton Brook is the easiest for children.
Okay.
It's got a lot of beach area and a lot of open area where the kids can go fishing. And there's also Black Pond in Meriden.
Right.
There's Baldwin Pond in Meriden. There's Hanover Park in South Meriden.
Yeah.
There's Community Lake. There's McKinsey Reservoir. There's North Farms Reservoir.
Okay.
So there's quite a bit around this area all throughout. And then again, the Connecticut Fishing Guide
Right.
will tell you a lot of places that you can go all over the state. And there's a lot of places that aren't fished very much, and they have bass because they're not stocked with trout, and they have other fish in there, pickerel, pike,
Yeah.
you know, sunnies and such. And you can travel around the state and get some pretty good sized bass and pickerel and pike during the season.
Now, I won't give away my favorite fishing hole, but about 2 months ago I was fishing, early morning hours in Wallingford, and an older gentleman called me over as I arrived. He whistled, hey. So I go over there, and I can see from a distance he's holding up a ginormous fish.
Mm-hmm.
And as I get closer, I realize that he just caught a trout.
Mm-hmm.
And as I get even closer, now I'm realizing the enormity of the fish. And it was, and I know you actually weighed the fish in because he told me he brought it to your place. It was, I believe, 9 pounds and 26 inches.
Yeah.
And it was obviously a native trout or a breeder trout. I mean, probably on its last leg, very old. But I've never seen a trout up close that big around here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing because where we were fishing, and again, I can't give away my place, was a small river that I didn't even think was deep enough to hold a fish like that.
Yeah.
But from what he told me, he was fishing in a little pool, and obviously those could get a little deep. And he was using I think he said he was using a night crawler, just a live worm, and he caught this ginormous 26-inch, 9-pound trout.
Yes.
So that was
They're
pretty
out
cool.
there.
Yeah. And personally, I don't recall the biggest fish I've ever caught. I think probably the most the best memories I've had were night fishing on a boat down in Long Island Sound with live eels, going for stripers. Because if you ever get the opportunity, go at night with live eels for stripers. It's like they love that. It's like candy to them.
Yeah.
And I don't know now. Is it true the bigger fish, whether it's stripers or catfish or whatever, tend to come out at night?
Seems like it. A lot of guys that catch the world record was caught in the evening.
Really?
The 83 pounds, 8-ounce striper. That was the world record.
In Westbrook?
Yeah.
By someone in Connecticut a couple of years ago.
A year and a half ago, yeah.
Year and a half ago.
And he's caught some other ones that are that big too. And he does a lot of fishing at night.
Wow.
And he knows where to go. And again, that's his secret place.
Right.
And he goes there and he catches big fish. And he uses eels.
Yeah.
Because at night the eels attract the stripers.
I mean, it could be the eel, the underneath part of them, their belly, possibly in the dark water. As it turns, it gives off a reflection.
I don't know if
attracts
it's
the stripers,
as
or-
much that as it is the motion.
Or the motion.
The
of them,
movement, the vibration in the water.
Yeah. Right.
And eels move around a lot, so it does attract fish that are hungry. So.
Now that's different than it's not the size of the ship; it's the motion of the ocean. That's
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just making sure. Totally different topic.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to go Jerry Springer on you, but so now there's going to be a lot of I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there watching, and maybe they have a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old child, boy or girl, who has shown some interest in fishing to them, but their parent maybe hasn't actually brought them for whatever reason. They could be afraid that the kid's not going to like it. Maybe the parent doesn't want to touch the worm or whatever. What would be your opinion to get a young child, male or female, boy or girl, to gradually get accustomed to fishing? I mean, how would you start them off?
Find out who your friends are. Ask your friends and other people that you associate with, and see if they go fishing. If your parents are again a little squeamish and they don't want to take you out, or they don't have the time. There's a lot of parents that are both working, and see if you have any friends. We do a lot with the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Those organizations come in and buy bait from us, and a lot of those organizations take their kids out. The schools will do it too. They'll go on fishing outings. There are a lot of tournaments during the year for kids, and different organizations put on the tournaments. A lot of the clubs, the Meriden Rod and Gun and Wallingford clubs, and they all have fishing derbies, and you can get the kids involved. Just takes a little patience and very little equipment.
What kind of equipment? I mean, just a bobber and a worm? Or?
A worm, a hook, a bobber, a little weight, and a small fishing rod.
That's all you need.
And that's all you need. And you can go out, and the kids can catch fish. And when they catch them, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So if they're catching fish, you know, they're having a good time, and they're outside.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big part of it. Get them outside, get them enjoying nature, and eventually they become fishermen all the time.
In my humble opinion, though, I would strongly discourage parents to bring their children out opening day fishing.
Oh, yeah, unless you're a seasoned fisherman.
Right.
It's a tough day when you go out opening day. There's a lot of people.
It's very
and
discouraging.
it's shoulder
at
to
times.
shoulder,
Yeah.
and you know, lines get tangled and everybody gets frustrated. So
Right.
the best thing to do is let the pros go out and do their thing that they want to go out on opening day, and just because it's opening day. If you want to take the kids out, wait a week or two until things calm down, and once they calm down, then you can take the kids out. There'll still be plenty of fish because they're constantly stocking for the 2 months.
Right.
And the kids will have a much better time.
I don't know what it is, but I have a very hard time catching trout in my own experience. Now, I think trout are probably one of the smartest fish out
Yeah,
there. I don't know if there's any scientific proof behind it.
Yeah.
But can you see that, you know, if opening day you catch, let's say, you know, for the average guy, 5 trout. By the end of opening day, the beginning of the next day, don't the trout, for the most part, have already seen every lure, bait, thing being thrown at them? Does that register in their heads and their little peanut minds that I'm not going to go after that? This is something smells fishy here.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's anything like that. They get fed a tremendous amount of food because they'll strip hooks, you know, all the time that people are fishing. So the second day they're a little full.
Yeah.
So, you know, a couple of days later they're hungry again. So people will catch more fish a couple of days later. You know, again, it just depends. They stock that Saturday, and then they may stock again Wednesday just before opening season, and then they'll stock again 10, 11 o'clock on Saturday, and then they'll stock again on Sunday. So there's always a little bit of fish that can be caught.
Right.
The thing is that sometimes it gets a little bit slow because they've just been bombarded with so much food that they just don't care. You know, they don't want to bite the hook. And a lot of people go out and use the wrong size hook, the wrong size weight. Different types of bait are good for trout opposed to bass. So, you know, you have to have a little bit of knowledge. And when they come into the shop, we try and help all the people that are just starting. We teach them how to set up their rod and reel and how to set up their bait.
Right.
And get started, you know, with the right kind of tools. So when they go out, they do have a good time, and the kids will have a good time.
Now, any truth to the, you know, the old saying that it's better to go fishing early morning or right before, you know, dusk, or is it you can't catch anything during the middle of the day?
It depends again when you're going. It depends on the weather too. You know, if it's cloudy, if it's drizzling, if it's raining a little bit, you know, days like that, early morning, late afternoon are the ideal times. But if it's cool enough during the day, like in April and May, you can usually fish all day long. When it gets real hot like it is now, most people will fish early morning, late evening, and they'll fish deep without a bobber. they'll put their worm on and some weight and just fish the bottom.
Right.
Because the fish want to stay in the cooler water.
Right. As
So-
you're, the water's colder at the bottom,
Yes.
so you'll probably find more trout.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Right down at the bottom, yeah. And the bass will stay in the shade. If you go into North Farms, there's a lot of lily pads, and the bass will stay in the shaded areas. So when you're fishing there with weedless hooks and frogs,
Yeah.
of course plastic frogs, you go out there and hit the edges of the weeds and the lily pads, and the bass will be watching to see what's going on. You don't actually have to go into the lily pads.
yeah.
You can go around them on the sides and such, and the bass know you're there trying to catch them.
Yeah, I love catching largemouth bass, but I think smallmouth bass put up a much better fight.
It just depends on how sluggish. If you get a really big bass, you'll get a fight.
Yeah.
But the smallmouth, of course, they can maneuver, and they do a really good job as far as giving you a fight.
Yeah.
Your trout will do the same thing. It just depends on the size.
Right.
If you get a real big one, he's going to be a little slow. As you get older, they get a little slower.
Just like we do.
Yes.
Do you, in your opinion, Charlie, live bait versus lures, which one would be more effective at catching fish as a whole?
It's hard to say. I have diehard lure fishermen that don't use any live bait. They just use rooster tails and phoebes and Thomas lures.
Yeah.
And they use all that, and they catch a lot of fish. They know how to use them. They fish upstream, let it drift down. They use poppers and such so that they can entice the fish. And then there's guys that don't want to use lures at all and will only use live bait.
Right.
They'll use mealworms with marshmallows. They'll use trout worms and dillies, night crawlers, and they don't use very many lures. The only time they do that, use a lure, is when they're not hitting the live bait. They'll try lures.
Gotcha.
But the diehard lure fishermen, well, that's what they'll use, and diehard live bait fishermen will definitely use their live bait all the time.
Well, we are already winding down towards the end of the show, and got about just under 20 minutes left. So, anyone out there want to call and ask Charlie from Uncle B's Bait and Tackle any fishing questions? The number's on the screen: 203-234-0025. Maybe you want to call in and tell us a fish story, the one that got away, or maybe you have a hot spot that you want to share with us, or a favorite bait or tackle or lure that you want to talk about. By all means, we'd love to hear from you. So give us a call, 203-234-0025. And just to remind you, tonight's replay of the show will be seen on youtube.com/openmic80. And you can also go on the NHTV website, nhtv.com, which will also have replays of the show on there, in addition to other shows that are aired on NHTV. So check that out. Bookmark that as one of your favorite websites. Now, Charlie, I haven't done this personally, but I think it's just because it's cold. I'm afraid I'm going to fall through, and it's cold. Ice fishing. Have you ever done it? And is it fun? Is it a pain in the rear? I mean, what's your take on ice fishing?
It can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It can be cold. A lot of people have shanties, and they go out on the big lakes, and they do a lot of ice fishing.
Right.
The lakes around here usually freeze. When you get over 3-4 inches of ice, the ice is pretty safe. And you get out, you use an electric auger, hand augers. You go out and you catch a lot of fish. They're dormant, but you're fishing the bottom. You actually have your tip-ups set about a foot off the bottom, and you use live shiners.
Okay.
And the live shiners move around in the water, and the fish in the winter are a little bit dormant, but they are hungry. So they will hit. There's about 7 or 8 ice fishing tournaments throughout the state.
Yep.
Silver Lake, and then they have Moodus, and a couple other clubs have fishing tournaments, and I've seen 5-6 pound catfish in the winter win tournaments, and they move around and you can catch them. And a lot of people don't catch a lot of catfish in the summer, but during the winter it seems that they catch a lot more.
Just a quick thought running through my head now. If the lakes and ponds are totally covered in ice, okay, how are these fish able to actually get access to prey?
Well, it's only a couple of 3 or 4 or 5 inches. Most of the lakes will only freeze. I think the worst winter we've ever had, the ice was 6 or 7 inches. North Farms won't freeze that much because there's only 3 to 6 inches, 3 to 6 feet of water in there, so it freezes a little bit slower. But Silver Lake is 15, 20 feet in the deepest part. I think Black Pond has some areas where it's 30 feet. So there's plenty of room for the fish to move around. And if it freezes up on towards the shore where it's shallower, they just move towards the middle of the water.
And as these fish are under the ice, obviously they're not able to get to, there's no mosquitoes or little frogs. So are they just feeding on little minnows underwater? Or?
Well, they become dormant during the cold weather, so they don't need as much food.
Okay.
And they don't move around as much. They still eat the weeds and the algae and such underwater. That's part of their diet. But then when you're fishing, there are smaller fish in the water.
Right.
So they eat the smaller fish.
Okay.
And they'll go after your shiners and different types of ice fishing bait.
Now, one fish or species of fish that's been introduced in Connecticut that was never around, but now it's pretty prevalent, walleye.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they started stocking the state with walleye, about 10 years ago?
I think so. It's been about that long.
Yeah. These were fish that were primarily found in the Midwest, Minnesota, Michigan, etc. Lake Michigan, Lake Ontario, you would troll for big walleye. I guess they're similar in nature to like a pike or a pickerel. Thank you. And I've never caught one or seen one up close. Have you seen any walleye come through?
A lot of pictures.
Pictures, okay.
Yeah, people bring in pictures of, when they're on the ice. Some people will keep them, some people won't.
Right.
They'll put them back in, so they'll catch and release. So, no, I haven't been anywhere. My son's been fishing in, colder areas. You go up to Candlewood and such. I think Lake Saltonstall has walleye in it too.
Yes, they do. I actually
so
grew
people
up.
Go fishing there a lot.
Grew up fishing on that lake. Very good bass lake.
Yeah. And now they have the walleye in there. So.
Yeah. And that was one of those lakes, as I remember 15 years ago, they actually banned and prohibited the use of live minnows when you were to fish there because of the onslaught of zebra mussels that started attaching to the bottom of boats and just killing the ecosystem.
Right. Well, you're not allowed to bring your own boat there. You rent a boat.
You rent a boat there, but now if you use...
they keep them clean and sanitary so that none of this stuff comes in. They don't want to bring any foreign diseases into the water. So
yeah, I've seen horror stories of what zebra mussels can do.
Kind of wipe out a whole lake.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy.
Yeah.
And they're just like those little what do they call those, barnacles, where they're just attaching to rocks and
everything.
Fish and everything. Yeah. One cool thing that I saw, I was watching I don't know if you ever seen him on the Animal Planet, Jeremy Wade fishing river monsters.
I've watched it a few times.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, ironically, I was watching an episode with him, and it was like on a Tuesday night, where he was actually going after sea lamprey, which are like eels. They call them like vampire fish. They're long, skinny. They get to be pretty big. They look like eels, same shape, consistency, but the edge of the where their head is, it basically has like a like little sharp teeth around the perimeter of their mouths, and they actually attach to their prey and suck the blood out of them. And they're called sea lamprey, and they make their way, they migrate up from the sea up to fresh water, and they go into dams, onto dams, and to just basically migrate. So they attach to fish, they latch on, and they suck the blood out of the fish. And he was catching a bunch of fish that had all these marks on it, same exact spot. So long story short, the next day I go fishing at one of my favorite places, and I'm in the water with my waders on, and I look in the water, and what do I see? A sea lamprey. I pick it up out of the water, and it was ugly. I mean, just like I saw on River Monsters the night before. And it seemed like one of those indestructible fish. I took it out of the water picked it up with my pole just to kind of get a look at it. And it looked like you could just chop its head off and it would just start regrowing. So it went back in the water, just kept continuing. Now, it was migrating from the sound up the Quinnipiac River and spawning or whatever they do, or they attach to the actual falls and, maybe look for fish to prey on. But it was a very kind of an awkward moment to see. It looks like
something like that around here.
Yeah, a giant eel that I just saw Jeremy Wade catching out in, I forgot where he was. I think he was out west in the U.S. catching these. But, I don't know if anyone out there has ever seen a sea lamprey or had a encounter with one. But if you have, call in, because, I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. And you don't want to get too close to them because they've been known to, latch on and, bite a human and try to, you'd obviously get them off in time, but they could literally suck the blood out of you. And that's what they're doing to these fish that they prey on.
Right.
So, well, we just have about less than 10 minutes left. I know the phone lines have been a little quiet tonight. Maybe everyone's just taking it all in and writing their notes. I think that's what they're doing. They're writing notes down as we go along.
That's right.
This is valuable information that we're giving out. But if you have any questions, again, in all seriousness, 203-234-0025. Charlie from Uncle B's Bait and Tackle is on, and we are talking fishing tonight. Growing up, it seemed like fishing was a male-dominated sport, if you will. And as I, just being a fisherman and being out and about, I see more and more females, more and more women getting involved with fishing. Have you seen that trend?
Yeah, in the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen a lot of single mothers coming in and asking for help with the kids and bringing them out there. A lot of single parents do it, and a lot of women come into our store. We have a huge female clientele.
Right.
And they know what they're doing. A lot of them come in and they know what they're going to go out for. They know what they want. They come in, they get their bait. They have their rod and reel set up, and they go out and they catch fish. And then a lot of couples come in, and the husband and wife are together. And I keep hearing constantly, she keeps catching bigger fish than me. And they're frustrated because the women are doing good fishing, and they're liking it because, they're catching fish. And that's the key to it. If the rivers and streams and ponds are stocked, people go out and they have fun. And they can make a whole day of it. So the women are having a good time beating their husbands and boyfriends.
Nice. Just like every other aspect of life, Now, saltwater, we are now obviously in the middle of the summer. Summer flounder, stripers, blues. What other snapper blues?
Porgies.
Porgies, thank you.
Yeah, we're doing flounder and porgy right now using sandworms and squid. The stripers are a little bit slow right now. The blues are in.
Okay.
So people are catching some blues. The stripers are a little slow. Flounder's been pretty good. Porgies are good.
Yeah.
People are crabbing. The crabs are 5-6 inches now, so people have started doing crabbing. And blackfish season opened July 1st, so a lot of people are doing blackfish. It's a little slow because of the heat, but blackfish season is open, and a lot of people are using green crabs. It's a basic bait for blackfish, so and they're really good eating from what I understand. everybody says blackfish cooked the right way tastes very good. So a lot of people do blackfish fishing.
Now, there's been, I read in the paper last week up in Cape Cod, another great white shark sighting.
Yeah.
There's been a ton of great white shark sightings in the last couple of years around the Cape area. Would it be,
Warm water.
warm water from the Gulf?
I would imagine.
The Gulf of Mexico, that stream that kind of goes up the Atlantic.
Yeah.
What is it, like 30 miles off the coast?
Yeah.
And you get, you can catch marlin
Yes.
and
Tuna.
and great whites. So, it's pretty cool. You can go to Montauk, go out 30 miles, and you can catch fish that you would catch down in Venezuela. It's pretty surreal.
Yeah.
But, there was one photo, I think it was last summer, where there was a kayaker in Martha's Vineyard, and he's in the water, and you can see a 20-foot great white behind him. And they're taking photos, and this poor guy's luckily it didn't attack him, but imagine the thought going through this poor kayaker's mind. You're on vacation and there's a 20-foot great white behind you about to eat you, your kayak, and everything else that comes with it. So I know there's a lot of interest in shark fishing. There's shark tournaments and whatnot. I've only caught sand sharks growing up, but have you ever?
That's mostly what's in the sound is your sand sharks. And
they're harmless.
Yeah, they're harmless, 2-3 feet long, 4 feet long.
Right.
So that you just throw it back.
Yeah.
And they do commercial shark fishing and such. They take you out on charters and stuff to do that. And they bring those back, and they of course they sell them all for the meat.
And make a profit.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fun when you go out there and do something like that, because it's a couple of hour fight.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Trying to get one of those fish in.
Yeah. Same thing with tuna. You can go on these tuna charters that I hear all the time people raving about.
Yep.
And you can catch a big eye tuna. They can get to be like 400 or 500 pounds.
Yes.
And you catch one of those, you're done for the day.
Yeah.
Very valuable too to the people.
Yes, you bring it in, and they actually pay you for it.
Yeah.
When you catch it, the boat captain and mate get some of the money, and you get some of the money. But it's a lot of work, and you can get paid for it and have fun.
Yeah. Well, we're just about out of time, which unfortunately I hate to say, because the show flew by. There were some other questions I wanted to get to. We weren't able to get to them all. But maybe we can have you on again someday in the future, and we'll talk about.
Be great.
Yeah, we can talk about ice fishing. Maybe in the wintertime. But so again, Charlie from theunclebees.com is the website. If you have any questions or you need more information, you can check out his website. And I do appreciate you coming on, Charlie.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much for taking
Had a great time
out of your busy
I hope
schedule.
I answered a lot of questions for a lot of people.
You did. Very knowledgeable, and a very cool show. I think it would be, as I always said, I want to get guests on from all different, backgrounds and walks of life. So I certainly appreciate it. Hope everyone out there appreciated it. Thank you for Ed for calling in. The only non-fisherman called in tonight. So all the fishermen were obviously,
fishing.
Fishing. So anyway, for Nick and Brian in the control room, for Charlie and my special guest, I'm your host, Michael Cuomo. Thank you for watching. I will see you next Wednesday night, 8 o'clock live. Good night, everyone.